I knew something was off when Brenda from Human Resources knocked on my office door and whispered about a new non-disclosure agreement. I never forget anything. That is why the company ran like a freshly oiled turbine instead of a flaming hoverboard strapped to a toddler. Still, I signed the paper, handed it back, and went right back to translating legal jargon into code triggers for the $300 million Macrovia merger. The one they kept announcing like a second, coming at every town hall, but no one actually understood. 12 years. That is how long I had been at Core Links. Not loudly, not glamorously. I was not the ping-pong table crowd or the combat slackers who wrote manifestos about culture on our internal wiki. I was the one who made sure the merger protocols passed federal sniff tests. I built the quiet integration lattice between Macrovia, creaking legacy system, and our backend that had been held together through 5 chief technology officers. You know, the boring stuff, the critical stuff. The stuff they did not even know they needed until it was broken, and I had to crawl in at 2 in the morning on Christmas Eve to stitch it back together. That morning, I had 3 monitors open, 2 half-drunk coffees cold on my desk, and a sticky note that said to ask legal about Clause 9, circled in angry red. Behind me, the office hummed with the usual startup bravado. Project managers swaggering around like they invented time, developers arguing about whether the code was emotional enough, and one intern playing the same 30 seconds of a song on loop, until I nearly stapled his headphones to the desk. And in the middle of all that, I sat there alone in my corner reviewing the final compliance for Macrovia. My name, Simon R. Delaney, sat right there on the federal documentation. Third-party signatory, neutral witness, clearance liaison. I was the bridge. No one else in the company had that clearance. No one else even wanted it. The training alone was 6 months of red tape and a psychological evaluation. It was like getting licensed to whisper into the ear of the federal government. They gave me the power, then forgot they did. I did not mind. I like being invisible. There is freedom in it. You get to build quietly while the loud people drown each other in buzzwords. I was not aiming for the spotlight. I just wanted my systems clean, my documentation tight, and my coffee uninterrupted. I am 48 years old, which in startup years makes me practically ancient. The only people who really noticed me were the ones who knew how fragile the entire setup was. Oliver in Macrovia compliance office, and my old boss before he pivoted to farming or whatever burnout excuse he landed on. Everyone else, I was just Simon in integration, quiet, middle-aged, overdressed, overcaffeinated, underappreciated, then Preston arrived. But let us not jump ahead. That day I logged it into the clearance system to file my final report. The Macrovia deal was supposed to close in 72 hours. My sign-off was the last step. Everything was aligned, months of work, back-end protocols, audit triggers, third-party sign-offs, cross-border data compliance all ready. Except I paused. Something felt wrong. I could not put my finger on it yet. Not exactly. But I opened my personal folder, marked contingency, and double-checked the clause I had highlighted months ago, just in case. Because here is the thing no one at Core Links ever understood. I did not build systems for them. I built systems in spite of them, because I knew someday they would trip over their own arrogance and try to throw someone like me under the bus. And I was not going under. Not without a fuse lit and a locked door behind me. They say when a company wants to screw you quietly, they do it on a Wednesday morning with free bagels. That is exactly how it started. The email came at 9 in the morning, all hands mandatory at 10 sharp. Executive team intro plus organizational updates. Do not miss it. That is, Human Resources, speak for someone new is in charge, and heads are going to roll. Enter Preston, the new chief operating officer, mid-40s, all jawline and caffeine, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my car. He had that startup cult energy. The kind of guy who thinks synergy is a personality trait and refers to spreadsheets as weapons of mass disruption. He smiled too much, talked too fast, called himself a fixer. I knew from minute one we were all already broken in his eyes. He spoke for 42 minutes straight, dropping words like agility, modernization, and legacy tech rot. People around me clapped like he was Moses coming down from a mountain. I just sipped my burnt coffee and opened my terminal, fixing a broken data bridge no one else even knew was failing. 3 hours later, Brenda knocked again. This time she did not bring paper. She brought two people from human resources, one with a clipboard and one with dead eyes. They led me into a side room like I was being told I had rabies. No eye contact, no water, just a manila envelope slid across the table like a ransom note. Preston did not even bother showing up. The letter inside was half buzzwords, half redundancy, shifting core competencies. Your role no longer aligns with strategic vision. I was still reading when the clipboard lady said I would need to return my badge and laptop before 3 in the afternoon. The other one added that security had already been informed. I stood up, walked to the door, and paused. Something flickered just past the corner of my eye. On the front desk where they kept lost keys and half-dead office plants was a printed photo of my face. In red marker, someone had scrolled, "Do not let him back on the floor. Not employee, not Simon." Just a threat taped to laminate. It hit me in the gut like a sucker punch in a parking lot. I had trained their last 3 chief technology officers. I had kept our biggest deal alive with duct tape and caffeine. I had missed funerals, birthdays, anniversaries to babysit their server migrations, and now I was being treated like a liability. I did not cry. That would have been giving them a gift. I took a breath, walked back to my desk, packed my things into a cardboard box. The way people do in bad sitcoms, except this was real. My palms were cold. My heart was hammering. Everyone around me avoided eye contact like I had contagious failure. My assistant, Jared, mouthed that he was sorry from across the floor. I gave him a nod and a half smile, then I did 2 things. First, I handed him my badge. No scene, no speech, just a quiet goodbye and the soft click of a lanyard dropped on polished fake wood. Second, I stepped outside, sat in my car, and unlocked my phone. I opened my secure vault application, accessed the encrypted key store, and I deleted 1 key. Not a password, not a file. A key store entry tied to my personal clearance certificate, used in every Macrovia integration handshake. Without it, the system could not verify identity for third-party sign-off. Without it, the merger could not close. Without me, they were holding a live grenade with no pin. I did not smile. I did not cackle. I did not even breathe deeply. I just drove away, hands steady, eyes forward because they thought they were building forward. But they just burned the only bridge they could not replace. I did not even take my coat off when I got home. Just stood in the doorway staring at my keys in my hand like they might dissolve if I blinked wrong. The house was quiet, too quiet. No pings, no emails, no questions, followed by 3 hours of unpaid labor. Just the ticking of the kitchen clock and the faint hum of the fridge. The box of my office life sat on the table like a dead pet. A mug that said I avoid warranties, a half-used notebook full of scribbled tunnels and margin notes, and a tin of mints I kept for sugar crashes during late-night system tests. All it felt alien now, like I had been dropped out of orbit and landed in a diorama of my own burnout. I went straight to the hallway closet. Past the winter coats, behind the broken printer I swore I would fix, was an old fireproof file box. I dragged it out, popped the locks, and flipped through tabs labeled in my own neat handwriting. Legal, clearance, protocols, red flag. Then I pulled out the folder marked contingency. I had prepared it 2 years ago, not because I was paranoid, because I paid attention. You do not sit in on merger calls for 12 months, listen to executives lie about redundancy planning, and not start preparing for the moment they pretend you are optional. The folder was thick, too thick for someone who was supposedly legacy tech. I flipped past the organizational charts, the platform architecture, the federal correspondence, found what I was looking for, the original Macrovia protocol checklist. My name was printed on the bottom of every page as Certified Third-Party Liaison Neutral Clearance Authority. I flipped to the last 2 pages. Clause 9C, termination of named liaison without formal substitution and recertification voids compliance status and suspends the legal standing of acquisition protocol. This is void ab initio. Plain English, fire me without replacing me with someone who passes clearance and finishes the checklist, and the merger becomes a $300 million legal paperweight. No Simon, no deal. I sat down slowly, the edges of the paper cutting into my hands like it knew what it was worth. I had not told anyone about this clause because no one ever asked. Most of them did not even read the merger documents. They just handed me coffee and assumed I would keep the train moving while they stood on the tracks posing for social media. Well, not anymore. I was not crying. That part of me had already gone cold in the Human Resources office when I saw my photo taped to a desk like I was a threat to national security. This was not grief. This was precision. They did not just fire me. They detonated their own timeline, and the worst part, they had no idea yet. They were probably in a conference room right now, high-fiving over my exit velocity and printing a new organizational chart with Preston smirking at the top. I flipped the protocol to the final sign-off line. My signature was supposed to go there. The ink was never going to touch it now. The checklist was not just a formality. It was a federal requirement. It tied into compliance databases, data privacy acknowledgments, international banking approvals, every buried landmine the lawyers assured us would not be a problem as long as I stayed on board. Oops. I leaned back, let the paper rest on my lap, and exhaled through my nose. This was not revenge. This was not sabotage. This was mechanics. You fire the keystone, the arch collapses. Basic physics. I grabbed my old laptop from the closet, powered it up, opened the encrypted drive I had not touched in 6 months. Inside, backup logs, keeper registries, liaison handshake protocols, everything they would now scramble to reconstruct from scratch with a guy who still could not find the correct network on his third day. I checked the logs. Verified the deletion I made from my phone earlier had propagated to the federal handshake server. It had timestamped, locked, irrevocable. They had no idea yet, but that was about to change. I sipped cold coffee from the office mug. Tomorrow, Macrovia would notice something was missing, and the screaming would begin. The call took less than 4 minutes. Did not rehearse it, did not pace around the kitchen or scribble bullet points like I usually did before big meetings. I just sat there at my dining table, the merger folder open beside a bowl of cereal I had stopped eating hours ago, and dialed the number I knew by heart. Macrovia Compliance. This is Oliver. His voice was chipper. Too chipper for a man standing on the edge of a $300 million pit. Hi, Oliver, I said calm and flat. This is Simon Delaney. There was a pause, paper shuffled. A mouse clicked. Oh, hey, I was just looking at your final checklist. Actually, we were expecting your last sign-off sometime this week. Are you calling to confirm that went through? I leaned back in the chair, eyes tracing the sunlight pooling across the carpet like nothing was wrong. Not exactly. Just wanted to check on something in the process flow. See if there were any updates on your end before I submit anything further. Another pause. This one longer. Wait, you have not submitted it? No. Okay, but why? His voice changed. The smile dropped off a cliff. They terminated me yesterday. Silence like the air left the phone line. I am sorry. What? No worries. It happens. Just thought you might want that information before proceeding. If you need formal notice, I can have my attorney draft something. He sounded like he was flipping through documents frantically, looking for any reference that this might be a prank, a miscommunication, a bad connection. They fired you? He finally asked. I am no longer employed at Core Links. My badge was revoked, systems access disabled, officially removed, but you are the named liaison. Your credentials are hardwired into the process. Your identification is listed in the acquisition binder. Interagency compliance flags are tied to your profile. We cannot just switch you out. That is correct. I let him sit with that. I will send you the formal notice shortly, I added. Would not want any ambiguity, and with that I hung up. No flair. No dramatics, just a scalpel slice straight through the spinal cord of their acquisition timeline. Then I called my lawyer. Wyatt, bless him, did not even ask why until page 3 of the termination letter. By then, he was already drafting a 2-sentence statement for Macrovia legal team. Simon Delaney no longer represents Core Link Systems in any formal or advisory capacity, effective immediately. The moment they received it, the brakes screeched. Macrovia halted all final signatures, froze the merger account, paused outbound fund authorizations and escrow triggers. I got a system alert 5 minutes later. Secure access handshake attempt failed key mismatch. Yeah, that is going to keep happening, boys. Then I did something petty. I opened my phone and scrolled to my old assistant number. Jared, sweet kid. Still green, still clumsy, but sharp enough to know when the ground is starting to crack under his feet. I texted him. They might want to check Clause 9C. Just a thought. Hope you are doing okay. No smiley face, no signature, just that. 3 minutes later, he responded. What the hell is Clause 9C? Everyone is freaking out. Did you hear something? I did not answer. Let him stew in it. It was not cruelty, it was education. The kind you only get when you watch the ice split beneath you and realize the lifeboats are already gone. I stared out the window after that. The sun had dipped behind the roof. It was March. I felt weightless, not giddy, not smug, just like something had shifted tectonically. And I was finally standing where I was supposed to be. They had not just handed me leverage, they gift-wrapped it and fed it to my front door. I did not need to shout. I did not need revenge. I was the consequence. And now they were going to learn what it costs to cut your foundation loose and pretend the house will not collapse. By Friday morning, the storm clouds were parked squarely over CoreLink's headquarters, and no one had packed an umbrella. Merger signing was scheduled for 10 in the morning. A full executive suite circus. Polished shoes, power ties, legal briefs lined up like dominoes. Macrovia delegation was supposed to roll in, flash some million-dollar smiles, and press pen to paper while everyone pretended it was not already done in spirit. But 10 o'clock came and went. No Macrovia, no delegation, no chief legal officer, no signature. Just silence. At 12 minutes past 10, Preston stood at the front of the executive conference room, one hand in his pocket, the other nervously clicking a pen back and forth like it might turn into a magic wand and fix his mess. "Well," he finally said, attempting a smirk, "you know how these legacy firms are slow, paper-heavy. We will fix it internally." He repeated that last part like a prayer. "We will fix it internally." Except the problem was already internal, because 3 floors down, someone had started whispering about Clause 9C. Apparently, Jared could not help himself. He mentioned the clause to a junior analyst, who promptly went spelling through the company's shared drive, found a copy of the original merger protocol draft I had uploaded months ago, and sent a screen capture to a friend in the legal department. By 37 minutes past 11, it was on the internal chat. By noon, the panic had legs. The general counsel stormed out of his office, yelling for someone to find the original signatory logs. Human Resources was in meltdown. Compliance froze 3 pending invoices. Legal started asking who signed off on my termination. The merger lead tried calling Macrovia directly and got stonewalled with a polite but pointed response. "We are currently reviewing internal documentation irregularities. Please stand and wait. That is corporate for you screwed up, and we are not cleaning up after it." At 4 minutes past 10 at night, my phone rang. Locked number, decline. Then again, this time the chief financial officer, direct decline. Third time voicemail. I let it roll. He sounded like someone trying not to sound like someone losing his mind. "Simon, hi. Look, I know this is not ideal, but we just had a bit of a hiccup with the signing today, and I was wondering if we could connect briefly, just to clarify some details on the compliance chain. Nothing major, dotting I's, crossing T's. Call me." I played it twice, then deleted it. They thought this was a hiccup. They still did not get it. It was not a hiccup, it was a lung collapse. I opened my laptop, checked the Federal Liaison Registry again. My name was still listed, no substitution filed, no recertification request submitted, no alternate key in place. Without that key, Macrovia automated signature sequence could not pass the compliance gate. No handshake, no merger, no exceptions. The more they panicked, the calmer I got. It was like watching a fire you did not set, but you did remove the batteries from the smoke alarm. The kind of quiet power that does not ask for applause. It just exists, undeniable and irreversible. I got a text from Jared. They are freaking out. Legal is blaming information technology. Information technology is blaming the legal team. Preston says it is a temporary credentialing bug. This is insane. He followed it up with, "Did you do this?" I just sent a single emoji, let them interpret it however they wanted. I made a grilled cheese sandwich, watched reruns of Judge Judy, answered a few emails for my other consulting gig, the one I had kept on the side quietly for the last 6 months, just in case. At 4 in the afternoon, a mass calendar invite went out to the company. Emergency all hands at 4:30 in conference room Alpha. The subject line said realignment and roadmap discussion, translation, damage control. That room was about to fill with buzzwords and sweat, and me, I was not even on the guest list anymore. But I was watching, quiet, steady, letting the ripples spread on their own. At 6 minutes past 9 on Monday morning, the email landed. Subject line was cold and bureaucratic. Regarding pending merger, immediate compliance review required. The body was even colder. To whom it may concern, due to the unplanned termination of the listed third-party liaison without replacement, Macrovia Group is formally pausing all executional aspects of the acquisition. Compliance obligations under Section 4.7 and 9C are currently unmet. Until resolution, transaction is considered suspended indefinitely. It cited a breach of fiduciary duty and void ab initio principles, 4 lines. No room for argument, no spin. The kind of message that makes executives drop their coffee and human resources representatives start dry heaving into the recycling bin. And me, I was sitting at my kitchen table in sweatpants, pouring almond milk into my cereal, watching it happen in real time. The buzz on professional networks, the finance blogs catching wind. A post from someone at Macrovia that read simply, "Always verify your bridges before you burn them." I could not have written it better myself. Wyatt, my lawyer, sent off the final documentation 30 minutes later. Fully notarized, signed in blue ink, sent priority with a digital confirmation. The letter was short but lethal. Mr. Simon Delaney has no further professional, contractual, or advisory obligations to Core Link Systems, effective retroactively to the date of his termination. All compliance duties tied to the Macrovia transaction have ceased. He even added a nice legal flourish about proprietary knowledge and third-party vendor independence. I did not even ask him to, but Wyatt is a professional. He knew exactly what was about to happen. The minute that letter hit Macrovia compliance inbox, the door slammed shut. Legally, structurally, practically, they could not just hire someone new and pick up where I left off. The deal was not a document they could forward. It was a hand-stitched parachute, and I had been the one sewing the cords. They ripped me out and they are falling with no drag. Later that afternoon, I opened a new tab and registered Quiet Seal LLC. It took 11 minutes. I registered agent bank account pending. Just like that, Simon Delaney was no longer an employee. I was an entity, a vendor, a firewall with a mailing address and a licensing clause. My phone stayed silent most of the day. No more calls from the chief financial officer, no desperate texts from Jared. But I knew they were talking. I could feel the boardroom tremors from 3 postal codes away because now the whispers were starting. Wait, did Simon have side equity in the Macrovia pipeline? Did he build the original data bridge? Was he acting as a vendor this whole time? No, I was not. But they wanted to believe I was, because otherwise they would have to face the fact that I was just a salaried ghost they ignored, until I became the keystone holding up their entire castle. Funny how people rewrite history when the present starts burning. I got a text from an unknown number that evening. Just 2 words, well played, no name, no signature. Probably someone from legal, or maybe Macrovia chief operating officer, or maybe one of the other ghosts who watched everything from the wings and never said a word. I did not reply. I was done playing. This was not a game anymore. It was architecture. Clean lines, elegant collapse, an old building razed, not with dynamite, but with precision. A single screw removed, a single key store revoked, a signature never written. The betrayal did not sting anymore. That was over. Now I just felt focused, clean, unburdened. Somewhere downtown, Preston was probably sweating through his shirt, pacing a glass conference room, while someone pointed at Clause 9C, projected on the wall like it was a ransom note. And me, I was adding a new tagline to my LLC website draft, Quiet Seal LLC Compliance Without Compromise. It had a nice ring to it, and it was about time someone remembered who built the damn bridge. It started with a whisper in the elevator. One of those dry-mouthed, wide-eyed conversation executives think no one hears. By mid-morning, it had metastasized into a board-wide panic. Someone leaked a red-line document from Macrovia legal team. Termination of Simon Delaney voids acquisition standing. The phrase bounced through every hallway like a live grenade. Suddenly, directors were sitting bolt upright in meetings. Phones rang without pause. Lawyers shouted over each other like caged dogs, while the public relations team frantically prepared contingency statements in case the news hit the press. Hit it did. A financial blog posted a blind item. Unnamed Ohio-based tech firm loses key compliance asset mid-merger. Deal in limbo. $300 million on the line. They did not name core links, but they did not need to name them. Inside the building, the air turned to ice. The chief financial officer called me again. This time, he did not bother with pleasantries. His voice was high-pitched, cracking like a balloon about to pop. "Simon, I swear this is your fault. You are holding us hostage. Do you even understand the position you have put us in? This could kill the company. You cannot just walk away." I did not answer, just stared at the screen as it buzzed and rattled on the table. Then it stopped. Then again. Voicemail. I let it roll. His tone had changed. Now it was pleading. "Simon, we are willing to be flexible. Just please, call me back. We can work something out. Macrovia will not accept anyone else. Keep saying material personnel discrepancy and legal saying you were never replaced. It is a technicality, right? We can fix it. Please just talk to me." Click. I watched the waveform load into my inbox and deleted it without listening again. It was not a technicality. It was the whole damn structure. They had not just removed a cog. They had taken a match to the foundation and acted surprised when the roof caved in. Macrovia was not budging. No workarounds, no acting liaison, no emergency substitutions. Their final response was 3 lines long. "We do not accept interim authorization under Clause 9C. Acquisition terms voided, contract suspended." Preston tried to spin it in a meeting, said we would rebuild the trust, whatever that meant. Someone in legal reportedly laughed out loud. The finance lead looked like he was about to cry, and then they made a mistake. They thought they could still salvage this the old-fashioned way, with charm, with pressure, with in-person theatrics, so they sent someone to my house. Late afternoon, a gray luxury car parked awkwardly across the driveway. A man in a blazer stepped out holding a manila envelope and the kind of hope that smells like desperation in the wind. He rang the bell, waited, rang again. I was inside, lights off, sitting at the kitchen table with tea and the faint hum of jazz in the background, flipping through licensing terms for a new client inquiry that had hit Quiet Seal inbox earlier that day. He knocked. I did not move. I watched him on the doorbell camera pacing, checking his phone, muttering. Finally, he left the envelope wedged in the screen door and got back in the car. I let it sit there until the wind blew it off the porch. I did not need to open it. I already knew what it said. Apologies, offers, vague hints at reinstatement and restoring alignment. They still thought this was about a job. They did not understand I had already built a new world from the pieces they threw away. This was not a grudge. It was not revenge. It was just done. Done letting people talk over me in meetings while I kept their infrastructure from collapsing. Done translating their mistakes into code fixes. Done playing guide to a summit I was never invited to celebrate. So when they knocked, I did not flinch. I just sipped my tea, watched the sky darken, and let the storm swirl behind a door that would never open again. By Tuesday morning, the tone inside Core Links had gone from damage control to full-blown cardiac arrest. The board called an emergency session. No presentations, no catered breakfast, just red faces and clashing egos. The kind of meeting where people talk over each other so loudly, you forget there is a fire because the smoke alarms were all ripped out during a modernization sprint. Preston sat at the head of the table looking like a drowned rat in a tailored suit. His swagger had vanished. His voice, once a confident drone of startup nonsense, cracked like he had swallowed glass. He started with, "I think we may have underestimated the depth of Simon Legacy role," and did not get more than 6 syllables in before the lead investor spoke up. A wiry man named Lance with hawk eyes and a voice like gravel in litigation slammed a folder shut and leaned forward. "Who?" Lance asked quietly. "Authorized termination without transition planning." Dead silence. The general counsel looked down at his shoes. The chief financial officer went pale. One of the board members coughed into her sleeve like it might protect her from the fallout.